Hi, it's Lisa. You may have heard the concept of fixed mindset versus growth mindset, and you probably have a little bit of an understanding of it. I thought I'd go into a little bit more detail today to help you to be able to use those concepts in your own growth. So the terminology, as I understand it, was sort of started by Dr. Carol Dweck, who actually started doing research in children in school and finding that some seem to persevere over and over again through lots of mistakes and failures, and they would just keep jumping in and trying. And others, as soon as they didn't feel confident being able to do something, they would sort of stop there, and it was really hard to motivate them to move on. So she found that as she started to do her research, there were different mindsets involved in that. So we won't go a lot into that part, but sort of just to talk about what's most useful to you, and not only for your own growth, but also in understanding kind of where your direct reports might be coming from as you try to help them to grow and develop as well. So a fixed mindset looks at intelligence and capability as sort of a fixed static state. And so the idea here is you're either smart or you're not, you're either talented or you're not, you've got it or you don't, kind of thing. A growth mindset really looks at, it's almost maybe a not yet instead of a never. So growth mindset really sees that you can develop a number of things. Now, that's not to say that there aren't certain things that are sort of inborn, like, you might, elite level athletes have a certain amount of just good genetics and that sort of thing, and it would take a lot for somebody without those genetics to move forward. But a lot of it is in the way that you learn and the way that you approach setbacks and difficulties. So in a fixed mindset, a person might look at a challenge as something to be avoided. So I see this in my coaching sometimes as, I'm just not good at that, or I don't know how to do that. And it sort of feels like there's a full stop there. What you want to do is you want to shift to a perspective of embracing challenges. And in fact, I think that Dr. Dweck actually says if you've been given something to do that you don't find challenging at all, and when she's talking about students specifically, if you don't find it challenging at all, then the teacher should be apologizing to you and saying, I'm sorry that I wasted your time. And I love that sort of image that gives to me. So I remind myself that when I'm challenged, I'm growing and I'm learning. Whereas when I'm just doing the same thing I'm already good at, that it's a bit of a waste of time from a growth perspective. When you encounter difficulties and obstacles, that might be, for somebody with a fixed mindset, they might kind of sit down and stop, whereas somebody with a growth mindset would look at, oh, okay, this is a setback, and how do I get past that? How do I get beyond that? What do I do now? Efforts in a growth mindset are much more about moving toward mastery, whereas an effort for somebody with a fixed mindset is going to be more, it might feel sort of like it's not worth doing. And that's not to say that people with a fixed mindset aren't hardworking. It just tends to be, when things are difficult, it can feel like there's not much reason to push through those difficulties because there isn't growth on the other side of that for somebody who sees the world with a fixed mindset. Getting feedback, and this is really helpful when you are a leader, to look at how your employees might see feedback. So somebody who has a fixed mindset is much more likely to feel that getting constructive feedback is really a criticism or an insult, as opposed to somebody with a growth mindset is much more likely to see that constructive criticism and say, oh, I can learn from this. Okay, how can I now take that and put that into action? So that feedback is really received in a very different way internally for somebody who sees that opportunity for growth. Somebody with a fixed mindset may tend to see the success of others as a threat, or may feel a little bit more afraid of other people around them being successful. Whereas somebody with a fixed mindset might look around and say, how can I be inspired by these successful people around me? How can I learn from these successful people around me? So you see there's a really different framing in those things. We have our mindsets, I think, they can come from a lot of different places. Certainly our upbringing, our culture, all of those things can influence our mindset. So nothing is to say that if you have a fixed mindset that you've got nowhere to go. What you can do is start to try to move in the direction of a growth mindset. And that can be developed. But trust me, it can be developed. What can happen is that if you have a fixed mindset and you maintain that over time, it can result in plateauing far, far before your potential. And some of you might have heard me refer to myself as a human potential geek. I love helping people to move toward their potential. So when somebody just sort of says, well, I can't, and they sort of stop there, or they don't aim a little higher than what they're already comfortable with, there's so much lost potential in there, and to me that feels really sad. As you're working to embrace more of a growth mindset, you're going to be stepping into discomfort a little bit more and find that, I stepped into discomfort a little bit and it got a little more comfortable the longer I was there and the more that I worked on it. And what happens as you do that is that it actually helps you to shift from a sort of deterministic feeling that it is what it is and there's nothing you can do to change it, to actually feeling like you have a sense of being able to have more of an impact in your own life and in your own career. And that is huge. That makes a massive difference. As you're doing this, having a regular practice of embracing that growth mindset can really, really help. At least once per day, think about what are the opportunities for learning and growth here. So in a difficult situation, in your day-to-day job, in a conversation with your boss that isn't where you're not seeing eye to eye, what are the opportunities for learning and growth here? What you also want to do is to think about a plan to start to embrace those things. So you find the opportunity for learning and growth, and then choose a small action to do differently in order to start to put that plan into practice. When you encounter an obstacle or a setback, ask yourself, how does this shift my action plan or the behaviors that I am trying to embrace? And then adjust the plan, adjust the behaviors. That's part of the learning. When you encounter successes, then asking yourself, and this is sort of a debrief, right? This is after the fact. You want to ask yourself, what worked well? What didn't work so well? And what do I want to do to maintain and to continue this learning? You might define another small action. You might put something into place to sort of ensure that those new learnings get incorporated more deeply. So maintaining them and wiring those in, and then how do I now level up a little so that I am taking a step toward further learning. So all of this can make a really big difference in your own progression, in your career, in your life, and moving toward your full potential, which is way bigger than you think it is. And As always, if there is anything that I can do, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I always love to hear from you. Put a comment in on your small action and how you intend to put this learning into practice. I'd love to hear more. Okay, all the best. Thank you. Bye.